All right. Hello, I am Kyle Chambers with the Quality Matters podcast and Texas Quality Assurance. And today we are doing a safety training. We're going to be talking about hazardous communication. Basically, OSHA, the Occupational Health Safety Administration, part of the Department of Labor, part of the federal government who creates, writes, and enforces most of the safety rules and regulations in this country, says you got a right to know about the dangerous stuff in your workplace. So here's how you get to know about it. All right. First of all, we're going to talk about what that OSHA CFR is. It is OSHA 29 CFR. That just tells you the CFR Code of Federal Regulations, kind of tells you where it is in there. It's OSHA 29 CFR 1910.1200, as known as right to know, or the worker's right to understand standard. So this program ensures that employees know about the chemicals that they're working with. You understand the hazards, you know how to protect yourself, and you have to know where to find the critical information. Now, you may hear me use a term interchangeably in here, MSDS or SDS. It's because several years ago, they made some changes to the terminology, to the way that the standard was laid out, and they quit using the term MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet, and now it's just Safety Data Sheet. So in our common day-to-day language, do I care? No. If OSHA's knocking on your door, or if you've got, say, an ISO auditor here for ISO 45001, something similar, it's SDS all day. But look, I get it. We're normal folks. We're going to use these terms interchangeably because, we hear MSDS 2/3 of the time anyhow. All right. So what's the scope of HazCom? Well, this applies to all employees who may be exposed to hazardous chemicals, which is kind of most work sites, believe it or not. This covers labels, the safety data sheets itself, your written HazCom program. Contact your local safety manager, supervisor, get a copy of it. Your company should have a written HazCom program. You've got to be trained on it, which, hey, it's what we're doing today. And we need to maintain a hazardous chemical inventory. Usually this is part of the SDS, but there is a difference in a chemical and a hazardous chemical. And yes, we're going to talk about it today. Okay, so what are the primary types of hazards? Well, there's physical hazards, flammable. This could be things typically gaseous, right? Could be liquids, could be solids. Heck, even you think about a matchstick, it's a flammable solid. All right, you can have things that are explosive. You can have things that are oxidizers. Oxidizers quite nasty. They're going to react with a little bit of everything. It's not like an acid where you can just neutralize it with a base. No, oxidizer is going to go till it's done. You think about like hydrogen peroxide. It's an oxidizer. You look on the bottle and it's like really, really, really freaking dilute amount of hydrogen peroxide in that bottle. But we've all done it before. You pour it down your sink drain. If you don't maybe keep it the cleanest ever, it's not going to quit bubbling and fizzing until it quits bubbling and fizzing, right? That's kind of the idea there. Compressed gases, definitely a hazard. Lord knows these can be like a little rocket if the end of them gets knocked off. Very, very dangerous. Corrosives to metals. That's a scary one there. Anything that can eat through metal, I probably don't want to get too near too often. And self-reactive chemicals. This is stuff that can literally react with itself. You want to make sure you handle with a very delicate care. All right. So then there's certain types of health hazards. So this could be like skin or eye irritation, right? Things that are respiratory sensitizers. You don't want to breathe it in. Carcinogens, maybe not directly cause cancer, maybe directly cause it. I don't know, but not anything you want to have to deal with too much. Mutagens, reproductive toxins. There's even target organ toxins where they target a specific organ in your body. And it's just scary stuff out there sometimes. And then something that could be acute or chronic toxicity. Sorry about that. I can't seem to speak today. So acute means is going to get you real quick. Chronic is going to last forever, right? So like we see all these mesothelioma commercials on TV. That's chronic, right? It's going to stick with you forever. That's from asbestos. We can talk about that another time. All right. There are some key elements of a good HazCom program. First one is a written program. You need a master document explaining HazCom procedures, and it should be located probably within your document control system, within your management system. Everyone's HazCom system may be a little bit different because you've got different hazards in your work environment that you need to worry about. All right. So we want to make sure that those are covered and addressed properly. You need a hazardous chemical inventory. This is the list of all of the hazardous stuff we maintain on site. So while, yes, a bottle of 409 that you might buy at Walmart, not hazardous, it does have a safety data sheet, and we want to keep the safety data sheet on hand, because how can you prove something's not hazardous unless you have documentation to say, hey, not hazardous? Pretty simple. Labels. I can't tell you how important labels are. All right, guys, putting this piece of duct tape on it and writing on it, in some instances can work, but what definitely can't work is you take a drum that has that, big label with all the little fine text on it, and it's empty, and now you pour something else in the drum. Can't do it. Never do it. Can't do it. I hear your excuses. I hear everything you're saying. I've heard them before. You can't do it. All right. Yeah, I know. It's a good drum. Yeah, I know. It's a good bucket. We don't want to lose it. Get that dang label stripped off first, and let's get a proper label on there for what we put in there. And yes, we can have procedures for secondary labels. As long as it's not a hazardous chemical, you can totally have a secondary label on it. If it's a hazardous chemical, we need to get a good label put on it with the appropriate pictograms, which we'll talk about later. All righty. So yeah, we have to maintain a log of SDSs, and this must be accessible at all times. So that means maybe it's the big old printed binder of SDSs, maybe it's an electronic binder, but it's got to be accessible to all employees at all times. The thing you don't want to run into is someone says, I need a copy of an SDS. Then they have to put in a request to the office, and they'll get it to you the next day. Can't do it. Not legal. That guy needs to be able to get it. So what that means is either he can put his hands on it directly, or his supervisor can put his hands on it directly and say, here you go. If you can't do that, you're probably not following the law. All right. Let's talk about labels. So we have now what we call GHS, Globally Harmonized System. You don't need to remember it on a day-to-day basis. It just means that some companies, depending on where they're located, maybe an exclamation point meant something. Maybe the old skull and crossbones meant something, but it might have been something a little bit different for another country, maybe something a little bit different for another company. And it got pretty dang confusing, truth be told. We didn't know what that symbol meant. So now we have GHS symbols, standardized systems that everyone can use. It's a good process. We'll go through the labels here in just a few minutes. But all shipped chemicals must include product identifier, telling you what it is. Signal word like danger, warning. These are going to be big. How do you know if it's dangerous? How do you know if there's something you need to worry about on it? It'll say danger, warning. Hazard statement. They need to tell you on the label what could go wrong. Precautionary statement, like, do you need gloves? Do you need eyewear? Do you need to avoid inhaling it? What is it? They're going to have pictograms on it. And we need to have the supplier information, their name, their address, all that good stuff. Okay. So that's the basics of a label. Labels for hazardous chemicals are actually pretty good. Tells you most everything you need to know right there on the label. Don't remove the label. Leave it there. Protect it. Don't let it get all tore up and nasty. If you know you're going to be working in a really dirty, oily, grimy, nasty environment, maybe put a little bit clear protective tape over the label. I've done it before. All right. Let's go on now to an SDS. Let's talk about what's included in an SDS. Okay, so I've got pulled up here on the screen a sample safety data sheet. All right. Now, the actual SDS you look at is probably going to look different than this because people change the font, people change the layout a little bit, but it's got the same basic sections. There's a total of actually 16 sections. So buckle in, grab a cup of coffee. Here we go. needs to include identification, the identification of the substance, its preparation of the company, any type of undertaking. And this includes things like the product identifier, what the product name is. So maybe in this case, this is bleach. Okay, cool. If there's an EPA registration number, this could actually be important if you wind up accidentally ingesting a hazardous substance. You want to know exactly what's in it and all the registered information around it. Or God forbid it falls into a water supply. Like, we need to know what it is. So the EPA registration number is useful there. Recommendations for the use of the chemical, any restrictions. So for bleach, recommended use, household disinfecting, sanitizing, laundry. Okay, cool. So we get the ideas there. Then we go into the next section, hazard identification. Okay, well, what type hazards are we dealing with here? Well, with bleach, it's skin corrosion, irritation. Yeah, that's true. Serious eye damage or irritation. Yeah, that's true. We've got a signal word here. This is the place for the signal word. In this case, it's danger. There's a danger associated with bleach. You can kind of see the symbol here. They're showing that it's corrosive. It's on your hand. It's an irritant. This is going to cause skin burns or eye damage. All right, cool. Good information. We've got a precautionary statement. They tell you what to do if you get it on you. There's no need to go grab Dr. Google. If you have an SDS, the information's there. Use it. Wash your face, your hands, and any exposed skin thoroughly after handling. Wear protective gloves, protective clothing, face protection, eye protection, safety glasses. Lord knows I've ruined enough shirts cleaning with bleach because a little bit of it splatters and gets on my shirt. So, you get the idea there. Then we've got a precautionary statement for response. Like, what are you going to do? Well, if you drink this stuff, rinse your mouth. Don't induce vomiting. If on the skin, immediately remove the contaminated clothing. Rinse with water if inhaled. But you get the idea. They tell you everything you need to know. I mean, it's right there. So make sure that these are available. Okay, so we'll move on here. I'll trust that you can read and go through these things. Then we've got first aid measures. Like, oh my gosh, as if this wasn't good enough, we're going to give you the first aid measures. Here's first aid. General advice, call poison control. I'll be honest with you, they're almost all going to say that because it's a good CYA. Eye contact, how much do you need to rinse? Oh, 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. This is why we often have the big eye wash stations at the shop. The little squirt bottles for your eye wash, that just makes people feel good. It doesn't actually do good. Skin contact, take off immediately if inhaled. Any case, you kind of get the idea there, but it's good information. Then we move on to firefighting measures. Okay, well, this isn't exactly like, bleach isn't the most flammable type thing, but, we'd use fire extinguishers. Caution, use of water spray when fighting fire may be inefficient. All right, so make sure we're using the fire extinguisher. But this matters, though, because some chemicals, you put water on it, makes it worse. So this is good information to have. Accidental release measures. Like I was saying earlier, what if this winds up in a water supply? What if this winds up in, whatever it may be in the environment? We've got all the information here that we need. Then we move on to exposure control and personal protection. Okay, so this tells us the exact chemical name, sodium hypochlorite. All right. But this is going to give us all the more technical information that we need, including hygiene measures, respiratory, skin and body, eye and face, a little bit of regurgitation of what we had before, but getting a little more detailed. So wear rubber or neoprene gloves and protective clothing, such as a long sleeve shirt. Fantastic. For your safety managers out there, when you're trying to do your JSAs, the information is almost always right here in the SGS that I know you never look at, but you probably ought to look at more often. We're going to talk about physical and chemical hazards. Oh my gosh, they're going to go into all the detail that we need on here. From its melting point, boiling point, vapor pressure, specific gravity, you're going to get the works on it. Now, for an average person on a day-to-day basis, do you need to worry about this? Nope. But if you're dealing with some really nasty stuff and you're not working in a nice, clean lab environment, Good information to check to make sure that we're not putting in the temperature too high, a temperature too low, the wrong pressure, with other substances that it might or might not be soluble with. Again, all sorts of good information here. Stability and reactivity, kind of expanding on that same idea there. Again, for our average employee, not anything you need to worry about on a really regular basis. But, it does go into some interesting stuff here, like incompatible materials. Don't mix it with toilet bowl cleaners. Don't mix it with rust removers. Don't mix it with acids or products containing ammonia. You can get some really nasty chemicals when you mix bleach with stuff. Lots and lots of nasty chemicals. So make sure that we're leaving it alone. Reactivity, it says reacts with other household chemicals. Yeah. All right. Good stuff to check. Good stuff to know. Toxology information. If you got something on you, I've run into this one as a safety manager. Guys get stuff on them, and some folks just immediately freak out, and they are terrified that they're going to have some lifelong issue that they now have to deal with, and they want to know right now what they have to worry about. The information's here, folks. You can tell them. You can tell yourself. Get yourself put at ease, or know if you need to do something. Target organs. Gastrointestinal tract. It's going to eat your insides up. I wouldn't be drinking bleach if I was you. All right. Ecological information. Again, great stuff here, especially if you're environmental manager, top management. Disposal considerations. You can't just pour everything down the drain, folks. We got to check the disposal considerations. Transport information. Some things you can transport, some things you can't transport. You need to know. So if any of you are in logistics, shipping, receiving, the information you need right here. Other regulatory information, safety managers, top management, shop foreman. Here we go. Does it have an acute health hazard? Yes. Chronic? No. Fire? No. Sudden release? No. Reactive? No. Just going to make you sick if you drink it or get too much of it on you. Okay. And then other information. This is just a place for anything else that might be useful to know. We've all seen the little number ratings, and there's different methods on it, but this would be a 3 on a health hazard, whereas a 4 is like it's going to kill you. This is a 3. It's going to make you sick if you drink it. Okay. Let me see here. There we go. So basic good information about STSs. I'm going to take a second now, and I want to go into some of these GHS labels because we did mention it briefly. So let me see if I can get that pulled up right now. All right, here we go. These are hazardous communication standard pictograms. So these are the new pictures that are out there. These pictures have been out here since, I think, 2015. So health hazard. So we're going to have picture of the dude with kind of radiating nastiness coming out of his chest. This means it's carcinogenic, mutagenicity, meaning it's going to make your cells grow kind of funky, kind of along the same lines of stuff that causes cancer. Reproductive toxicity, that's no good. Respiratory sensitizer, going to tear up your lungs, make it so you can't breathe no more. Could be a target organ toxicity or aspiration, like you just can't breathe at all. This is stuff that's either going to kill you fast or kill you slow, but it's probably going to kill you. It's pretty nasty stuff. All right. And so you know that because you see the guy with the thing radiating out of his chest. Common symbol now. You'll notice we don't have the old skull and crossbones for these type things. Skull and crossbones now is specifically for acute toxicity. It's going to kill you, right? This is, it may kill you, may make you really sick, may make you really nasty. But the skull and crossbones, it's probably going to kill you. Flame. Well, that's kind of obvious. It's flammable. It can make itself hot. It can make itself blow up. It emits a flammable gas. It's self-reactive. You get the idea. Exclamation mark. This one used to be really confusing, but it's an irritant. It's a skin sensitizer, acute toxicity, narcotic effects, but you get the idea. There's a lot of different things that kind of go along with it. And yes, you may wind up having multiple symbols for some of these. The gas cylinder, that one's pretty obvious. corrosive. We saw this one on bleach, although I might argue that we should have had the exclamation point there. It's a good system, but it's not a perfect system of pictures, but it's a good one. It's skin corrosions and burns. Obviously, we've got the ball exploding, explosive. You might often find the exploding and the flammable next to each other. Flame over a circle. This is a weird one. That flame with a little fire coming up off of it. This is an oxidizer. So these are things that react with the oxygen in the environment. You can't stop these. That's the thing. Like an acid, you can mix it with a base, you can stop it. Oxidizer is just gonna go until it's done going. You see the dead fish in the tree? Well, that means it's, bad for the environment. And obviously, skull and crossbones, either it's going to kill you quickly or it probably will. And oftentimes you might see skull and crossbones next to the health hazard with it radiating out of the guy's chest. Okay, so that's enough on the pictograms, but want to make sure that you've at least had a chance to see them, kind of know what they are, know a little bit about them. All righty. I swear we're getting closer to the end here. So thanks for bearing with me. I know this isn't the most thrilling content in the world, but it's good. You really, truly do need to know this in your work environment. Make certain that you have, as an employee, these are your rights and responsibilities. And that's a fun discussion. Rights and responsibilities always go hand in hand. You want to make sure that you've got access to the SDS in your HazCom program. So if you don't know where it is, ask. I sure hope any of you using this as safety training in your shop, you bug the mess out of your safety manager after this. All right. So training at hire, you should probably be trained when you get hired on this. You need to be trained on proper PPE that you need to use in your workplace. You got to make sure you follow procedures, safe handling, storage, disposal. So all these goofy little rules and regulations. Well, you saw how much information's on the SDS. Probably some good reasons we've got those rules and regulations in place. You got to report spills, leaks, or exposure to anything. Don't be thinking you're going to get in trouble for reporting it. You need to report it. You need to let people know about it. And when I say report it, report that directly to your immediate supervisor and let him pass it up the chain as need be. Non-routine tasks and emergency response. So this may require some specialized training. So there are some areas that kind of matter here. So if you ever have to deal with confined spaces, bad spot to be in when you've got dangerous chemicals. Maintenance, especially in unlabeled piping, that can be a little scary. Accidental releases. So if you're ever involved in any of these type of situations, these are for folks that have some additional specialty training. And we want to make sure that there's an emergency response training that's provided by your safety manager for these type things. All right, record keeping. Obviously, when you go through and do these trainings, you're going to be making sure that we get, attendance to the trainings. We also want to make sure that we're updating our SDSs. So this is a real important one. Just because you have an SDS from 5 years ago for that chemical and they released a new one today, you don't get to ignore the new one. You need to replace that old one with the new one. They may have found out something new about the chemical. They may have updated some of the recommendations or guidelines on there. Pay attention to it. But that's really it for HazCom. I mean, the fact is, like I say, you have a right to know about these things in your work environment, and more than a right to know, you have a responsibility to learn about the things that you're working with so you can work with them safely. That's it. Y'all take care. Be safe.